Good evening and welcome to Law Talk, the show that brings the Constitution, the law, and the events of today to you each month. Yes, Mark, how are you doing tonight? And what are our subjects?
Well, first we're going to talk about Robert Lavoy, who's a true American hero, and he died for the First Amendment. And of course, not very people have heard about this story, but there's one courageous young lady, about 18 years old, Victoria Sharp, who's been testifying, any place that will listen to her, that Robert Lavoy was assassinated by the FBI.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about who is Robert Lavoy. Wasn't it Robert Lavoy Finnicum?
Yeah, it was Robert Lavoy Finnicum, and he was associated with the Bundys, and they were protesting that the federal government owns 90% of Nevada. In the case of this county, they were up in Oregon. That's 10,000 square miles. Out of the 10,000 square miles, the federal government owns 76% of that county.
Okay, well, let's go back. So now, how did this all start? You say it started in Nevada, and then how did it move up to Oregon?
Well, I think that they were talking to all kinds of ranchers and saying these leases, they were trying to talk ranchers into not paying their lease payments to the federal government because they're saying constitutionally, this shouldn't all be the federal government's land. And so they were on their way to a senior center in the small town of John Day, and so they're going to go talk to the folks at the senior center who had invited them there. And on the way, they're ambushed by at least 20 snipers with the FBI.
Okay, well, before we get to the 20 snipers with the FBI, I'd like to step back a minute. The Bundy event in Nevada, and didn't the senior Bundy go to prison for not paying his federal rights that he was supposed to be paying for?
There was a land border dispute where the Fed said, hey, wait a minute, this river changed course many years ago, so you owe us back rent or back lease money on this river. And the Bundys were saying, look, we've been here for 100 years or 80 years, and this is where the land, this is where the division of property is. So
always been.
And so, but there was some things like there's a tortoise issue that Harry Reid wanted to put a bunch of solar panels in so he can get government guaranteed loans, which never get paid back, of course.
Right.
And then, and so those tortoises had to move. They wanted to move them where the Bundys were. And so they had to push the Bundys off where they were. And the Bundys didn't want to go. So somebody came and shot all the Bundys' cattle and put them in holes. And the Bundys said the feds shot their cattle and put them in a hole. And the feds say that the Bundys shot their own cattle and put them in a hole to make the feds look bad.
Okay, so that's in Nevada, but how'd this get moved up to Oregon?
Well, Oregon has ranches, and there's a lot of leases up there, and they went up there and they said this is 76% of this county is owned by the federal government. And, we think that this is unfair, that the people of the state of Oregon should own this land, and people shouldn't have to paying all these leases to the federal government.
Well, doesn't this go back to whether it's states' rights or federal rights to the property that's in Oregon then, right? Does Oregon assert any ownership rights for that land?
Well, apparently some of the land they were talking about had been the county, and the feds went and took it.
They took it.
And so what this group, the Bundy group, was saying was, the county should get it back.
Okay, well, why did the feds take the land?
I don't know why they took the land. I'm assuming usually whenever the feds are involved in something, there's some kind of kickback scheme where the individual apparatchik or federal bureaucrat gets some kind of kickback and makes millions of dollars.
Well, does this have anything to do with the EPA that's been exercising such authoritarian rights under the last 7 years of this administration?
Like I said, I don't know the scheme on this, but I do know they went up there to give a talk, and they were on their way to give the talk, and they were stopped. And as far as I know, they hadn't broken any traffic laws, and they had broken no law.
Okay, well, let's go back to the 20 snipers. Why were there 20 snipers surrounding a vehicle in the middle of snow country while they were driving to give a talk? This is the part I'm not really clear on.
Well, there was at least 20 snipers because Victoria Sharp said that there was 20 laser spots on their heads and bodies when they were stopped. So there might have been more than 20 snipers, but I guess they had snipers in the trees, snipers in the forest. So it was an ambush because they didn't want Robert Lavoy getting these senior center folks all riled up about land rights.
Okay, so when we're talking about a bunch of snipers, or 20 snipers at least, What snipers from what organization?
From the FBI.
The FBI.
Right.
Why was the FBI on the road with 20 snipers trying to stop this person?
Well, I think that this is a pretty, I worked with the FBI in the past, about, 25, 30 years ago on a felony murder. And I always had the highest respect for the FBI, the professionalism of the FBI agents, the risks they would take, their dedication was just incredible. But unfortunately now the FBI has been, in this last 8 years of the Obama regime, they're basically a hit team for the mob.
So it's like another political organization with guns.
They're just the mobsters doing what they're told to do. And so it's really, it's a day to live in infamy, the day that the FBI has turned into just a mob organization. It's
okay.
The FBI used to be a shining example of law enforcement in front of the whole world, and now they're no different than the Colombian cartel or any other hit team.
But they got badges and guns.
Yeah, but the badges mean nothing.
Yeah, you mean these stinking badges.
They just stinking badges. Yeah, we don't need no stinking
we
badges.
don't need no stinking badges. Okay, so let's
give us your guns.
Yeah, give us your guns, and hey, don't worry about us with the badges. Okay, so let's move on though. So how did this Mr. Robert Lavoy Finnicum wound up getting shot in this whole situation?
So it doesn't make any sense. They stopped. They said they wanted to talk to the sheriff. Well, the FBI doesn't like him communicating with the sheriff because the sheriff's agrees that the county should have this land. And so it's really it's a fight between the feds and the county. And so they said, well, we want to talk to the sheriff. And so first of all, Lavoy had his hands out of the window when he got pulled over, so they could see he wasn't up to anything. And then no one in the vehicle ever fired a shot or pulled any weapons. And then Ryan, who was in the back seat, he asked if they could let the women go. There's 2 women in the car. The FBI said, no, we're not letting the women go. And then they got hit with about 120 bullets.
Who got hit with 120 bullets?
The vehicle.
The vehicle got hit with 120 bullets.
By the FBI, shot 120 bullets. And, Lavoy had gotten out, walking with his hands up. The FBI shot him multiple times. Even after he lay dead with his hands were still above his head, they keep shooting him. And the FBI kept shooting at the vehicle even after Lavoy was down.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's go. Let's take this one step at a time. So you've got this Robert Lavoy steps out of the vehicle, hands totally up.
Hands up.
And he's immediately been targeted by a lot of laser sights.
Right.
So he's walking. Did he have a gun in his hand?
No, he did not.
No gun in his hand.
No.
So then why did they have to pull the trigger?
Well, I don't think they didn't want him to make the speech.
Yeah, but that speech he was just gonna protest the government owning the land.
I think they were gonna incite these oldsters, and who knows what would happen next.
Well then, okay, so then he's walking outside the vehicle, hands up, nobody in the vehicle. Does anyone in the vehicle have a gun?
There were people who had guns, but no one had pulled any weapons.
So no FBI sees a gun.
No, according to this witness, no one fired a shot from the vehicle and no one pulled a gun.
Okay, so now you've got this vehicle surrounded by FBI snipers.
Right.
You got a guy walking with his hands up, and now you're telling me they just opened fire on him?
Then they opened fire on him, and at somewhere about that point, the drivers, somebody tried to drive and it hit the snowbank, but they didn't get very far because they were just blasting away at the vehicle.
Okay, so how many times was this Lavoy guy hit?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if we have an autopsy on that. I don't know if the state attorney general has opened an investigation. I don't know if Congress has opened an investigation. This pretty much has been silenced because no one's supposed to talk about it. And there's really very few people that are mentioning it. But I don't know if the state attorney general has opened an investigation.
Well, I will tell you this. The news programs have shut this down completely. You can't even tell what's going on with this story.
Yeah, well, this is not something people want to talk about. But I do
want to... What do
you
mean people? When you say people, what people don't want to talk about?
The federal government is very touchy about someone asking why they own so much land and have so much power. And why
the federal government does.
Yeah, the federal government, well, what used to be the federal government, by this regime, why people, the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, rights to private property, those are all passé, and they don't want people talking about those things.
Wait a minute, is this more of the destruction of the Constitution by this administration?
Well, I would say the destruction of they're just killing people. Yeah, so I guess.
Well, it's obviously they took his rights away. But I will tell you this.
Well, no, he was shot because he was trying to exercise his
freedom of speech,
his First Amendment rights. But this is what I'd like to say about Lavoy. I'm going to say, Aloya fulgabant juste e tamquan centella in ardanda discurrent un actrum aluia. The just shall shine and shall run to and fro like sparks among the reeds forever. And I think this guy's a true American hero, and I think he was assassinated for free people everywhere.
Well, I know that as we wind up this segment, I'm going to tell you right now, I do know that there's the 6 FBI that actually are targeted as the ones that did fire on him and hit him. They're all under investigation currently. And one more time, this will be another investigation out of the Loretta Lynch Attorney General's office.
They got about as much chance of getting busted as
that's right.
Hillary does.
Fast and furious. Fast and furious.
So anyway, it's another guy who died for the rights of everyone.
Is he a martyr?
I would say he's a martyr. I'd say he's an American hero. And I'd say, he died for everybody's freedoms. And you've got a gangster regime running wild. Okay, it's just a sad day.
That's terrible. So what's our next subject tonight, Mark?
Well, it doesn't get much better. Okay, Scalia.
You mean Justice Scalia?
Yeah, SCOTUS, Justice
of
Scalia.
Supreme Court.
Was one of the few people that were stopping the Obama regime from confiscating guns. Really, Scalia was either the most powerful person on the world or the second most powerful person in the world. No one else was really opposing Obama because the Congress, Paul Ryan, they all threw in the towel for one reason or another, either threats or bribes. So Scalia was really the only, so I would say he's either the first or second most powerful guy in the world. He died mysteriously in Texas.
Wait a minute. When you're saying mysteriously, what are you describing?
Well, first of all, he didn't have his bodyguards with him.
That mean the U.S. Marshals?
Yes, his security detail wasn't there when he passed away. There was no autopsy.
No autopsy.
There's no autopsy.
You got the Supreme Court justice who served on the Supreme Court the longest for any of them. He was the longest serving, the most conservative, the one dramatically against the Obama administration's every one of their acts, including global warming, including the EPA, including the gay marriage, including all of this. And you're saying he just dies and nobody does an autopsy?
Well, no, they didn't. Okay, now the argument against doing an autopsy goes, well, the family didn't want it. But
the family didn't want it.
But let's look
at it. What do they have to do with it? Were they there?
Well, we don't even know if the family, so that's a report, and we don't know what the family was told. But what happened was the body was immediately
embalmed?
Well, it was immediately whisked away, and it was sent to kind of like an embalming place far away, and the blood was immediately drained and sent to the sewer.
Why?
Well, to destroy the evidence.
Destroy the evidence.
Okay, and so
is there a question if it's poisoned?
Well, I would say, having worked on some, wrongful death and murder cases, I would say, I'd bet my life he was poisoned. I mean, there's everything that adds up that this guy was poisoned. Okay, so he was pronounced dead of natural causes from a judge who was 300 miles away over the phone.
How did the judge do that?
Well,
how did he inspect the body?
No one inspected the body.
No one inspected the body.
No one about.
And what about who found the body?
The U.S. Marshals found the body.
Okay.
And so what's most likely here is a drug called Succinylcholine, and that would be injected probably into his buttocks, and that would cause a rapid muscle breakdown, would cause heart spasms, cardiac irregularities, and a cardiac arrest, and that would look like a heart attack. And
but when they find the insertion of the needle?
No, they did no autopsy.
They didn't? Oh, that's right.
There's no autopsy.
Oh, that's right. How convenient.
And so now, even if, according to Dr. Baden, and Dr. Baden used to be the chief medical examiner of New York.
Are you talking Baden? Dr. Baden.
Baden. He said it could have been poison, and he said if they could have taken a needle, and they could have put it in his heart or into his bladder. And with sophisticated chemical tests, even after he was embalmed, they could have tested for this succinylcholine. But they didn't do that.
Do we know for sure the family asked for no autopsy?
Well, that's a report, but we don't know what the family was told. I mean, remember what Hillary told the families at the Air Force Base?
Yeah.
So who knows what they were told?
Yeah.
But so
you mean the Benghazi landing of all the families of the bodies?
Yeah. So I mean, who knows?
Oh, yeah, it was a video.
Well, I mean,
you don't forget the video.
But every time an American
it was a video.
No, but every time an American hero dies, there's some kind of phony story.
Oh, there is a phony story.
It doesn't matter if it's Lavoy or Scalia or the CIA agents in Benghazi. There's always some phony, story. So there's no DNA evidence, no autopsy. Like Bergdahl,
yeah. Like Bergdahl.
yeah.
Trading the 5 generals for a traitor. That's always a good one.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an entertainment. Let's go back to SCOTUS.
So anyway,
Can we talk about the background of this ranch where he was located?
Okay, it was Poindexter runs his ranch.
Yeah, it was a Poindexter, and it was owned by two guys, Poindexter and Foster. Foster was a big-time lawyer, and Poindexter was an ex-political guy who's a hardcore Democrat fundraiser, but him and Foster, for some reason, Foster's allegedly a Republican guy, but Poindexter is big-time Democrat. So they were running a ranch, a 30,000-acre ranch, that was the private hunting zone for a group called St. Hubertus. And St. Hubertus is a hunting organization that goes back to 1695. And it was started by a Baron von Stork. And Baron von Stork had his ancestors now, and they talk about they go out hunting because it's supposed to be protecting the animals, and that's how it started. But in fact, they go out hunting the animals. And what happens is it's like a hierarchy. And the hierarchy took first root here in the Bohemian Club up in Russian River area. And so now the Bohemians, and it's funny because Baron von Stork, who started this, was in Bohemia, which is now called the Czech Republic. But at that time it was Bohemia. And so it's interesting that in the Bohemian Club up at the Russian River is where the St. Hubertus Hunting Society started. And what happened was they bought a huge ranch in Texas. And at this ranch, they probably wine women in song, as well as hunting. It's a private with private jet runways, and it's a pretty big party angle. But here's the thing. It's a secret society. It's another secret society where you don't know what they really do.
Well, I don't know that much about the secret society, but I do know that if people look at the New York Times, February 20, 2016, this was written by Lawrence Altman, MD, and he's saying this Dr. Baden is saying without an autopsy, there's no way to know the specific cause of Justice Scalia's death. Now, people say, oh, well, the family didn't want an autopsy. But if this guy is the second or the most powerful person in the world, I'm sure if Obama died mysteriously for no reason,
in his sleep,
they would probably have an autopsy.
I think they'd have an autopsy.
But for some reason, there's no autopsy. And so, and what also another thing that this Dr. Baden said is that Justice Scalia's body could have appeared relaxed in his sleep without showing any external signs if he'd been poisoned.
Yeah, but
so in other words, there's no way you would know by looking at him that he'd been poisoned.
Yeah, well, you know, we're going to cover this again a lot more thoroughly when we start talking about the pick to replace him, which there's a whole, as we kind of hit on, there's a whole uproar about whether or not President Obama has the opportunity to do that before he leaves office.
Well, but only if the head of the Senate folds.
Yeah, well,
which could happen if he gets bribed enough.
But anyway, we're going to save that for our next show because that I think is lots going to happen in the next month. So what's our final topic tonight, Mark?
Well, the final topic is in the olden days.
Back in the olden days when you had those old white guys. Those rotten, terrible guys who wrote the Constitution. You used to have a legislature, right? We used to.
Yeah, there used to be a legislature, and they used to enact laws, and they would either be voted
up or down,
signed by the president or not, right? But there's no real Congress anymore. There's no real legislature. Now you just have a mobster, and he just issues these edicts.
You mean the emperor in chief?
Yeah, well, he's a mob. And so he's a mobster, and so he bumps off people he doesn't like, and he does these edicts. And so basically you have these little fiefdoms that they call the EPA or the BLM or whatever. Those are little fiefdoms.
Yeah, the Department of Education.
Yeah, they're these little fiefdoms. And they just make up laws as they see fit. And
is that because the emperor stacked all these organizations with the far lefts, right?
Well, the point of the matter is that they're just making up laws as they go along.
They're not far left. That's right.
So how many laws did they make recently in the last 8 years? I
understand. The last 7 years they made over 21,000 laws with nobody voting on anything. Yeah, so these are not laws. These are statutes.
Well, they're not laws. They have the effect of law.
They do have the effect of law.
They're putting people in prison without a legislature. So it's a different thing. In the olden days, you had these stupid old white guys.
Oh, you mean the
real
laws.
Stupid legislature.
You mean it goes back to the
beginning of the Constitution. They would debate. They don't do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore.
If you debate, you get killed.
Now you debate, you might not wake up in the morning.
Yeah, if you debate, you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so like for example,
Is this part of the living Constitution that has gone away?
This is the living
Constitution. And by the way,
no, see, what I want is a living mortgage where I can say like I'm supposed to pay
I'm not supposed to
$6,000
pay. I don't want to pay anymore.
Well, no, but wait a minute.
It's a living mortgage.
So
that means I have a choice.
I'll pay you a quarter of mine.
I'll pay you part of it. But by the way, you can't foreclose because it's a living mortgage.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw Wells Fargo has a new one. It's called the living mortgage.
Yeah, right.
You really don't have to pay unless you want to.
Yeah.
And see how long that goes.
If your circumstances change, then you breach contract.
You throw a little bit more money
and the
down.
whole agreement, which is the agreement between the state or the government and the people is the Constitution. And now if the state thinks, well, let's see, I was only able to steal 10 trillion last year and I want to steal 20 trillion. Let's change the Constitution.
Oh, by the way, I hate to say it, but you're part of the 1%, Mark.
Yeah, right.
We have to come down on you. That's why the EPA's got to enact another 1,000 rules a day.
Anyway, so the Lacey Act says if you have a fishing game law in a foreign country,
what does that have to do with us?
If you violate one of those, then you go down. That's a federal crime. And some guy had some lobsters, and he had some weird law that they'd never bust their own people for.
Why not?
But he was someone who.
Who's lobsters?
But I think they were Honduran lobsters.
Honduran lobsters.
And so,
well, wait a minute. How many years in prison did you get for Honduran lobsters?
He was facing federal charges. And
for what? For having a Honduran? What does it say? Made in Honduras on the bottom of the lobster?
I think he used rubber bands or something.
Rubber bands with Honduras on it.
He was of the wrong.
Is that on the clips?
And then if you're walking a dog with a leash that's longer than 6 feet, that's a federal crime.
In what country?
In the United States.
In the United States? You mean if I go to Yosemite with a dog?
And it's longer, if it's 6 feet and 1 inch.
If it's 6 feet 1 inch?
That's a federal crime.
I go to prison.
Yeah, you're Al Capone. You're basically
Al Capone,
You're just the same as Al Capone.
But wait a minute, I have a question. But what about if you have no intent?
It doesn't matter if you have intent.
No intent?
We don't need intent anymore.
You mean, wait a minute, the whole criminal jurisdiction?
Oh, it's completely wiped out.
It's all gone.
Okay,
I mean, going back to the beginning of time.
The Magna Carta.
The Magna Carta.
The Magna Carta.
Hammurabi's Code. All gone.
Well, wait a minute. The Magna Carta was a bunch of stupid old white men.
Stupid old white
men. And the Roman
Wait a minute, Hammurabi Code was a bunch of Arabs.
Yeah, those bunch of stupid.
The Iranians.
The Iranians.
That was Iran.
Stupid.
Hammurabi.
Yeah.
But they're wiping all that out? Was that 10,000 years of law?
Well, the reason the Marxists have to wipe this out.
Oh, the Marxists.
The reason they have to wipe out all of history. Because if you
restart.
Because if you had even the most rudimentary understanding of history, you would see what they're proposing is just ridiculous.
Of course.
So you have to wipe out all knowledge of mankind. Before you.
Oh, you mean like they're destroying all the Christian temples in Syria, in Iraq? That's because ISIS wants to wipe it out. So is this like an eraser board, and the administration is just erasing the history of our country?
Well, see, if you really had a renaissance and you really had good ideas, you would build on the good ideas of the past.
Oh, build on the good
You wouldn't like destroy every single thing that was ever thought of.
You mean like ISIS destroys everything in your path?
And so Marxist has to destroy everything in the past because
you mean like recreate the past?
Well, they just destroy the whole thing.
In a vision they see.
Well, what they do is they befoul it. They say, those were rotten, greedy, racist, bad people.
Oh, that's terrible.
And anything they came up with doesn't count, right?
Terrible.
Now, the thing is, like, Mao was a great hero, and he only killed 65 million out of 200 million.
Is that all? Was that on a good day or a bad day?
Breaking their kneecaps, starving to death, and shooting them. But the white guys.
What did he do with the bodies? Were they environmentally friendly? Did they bury them in holes?
And Stalin only starved 10 million.
Oh, that's not bad.
Ukrainians in the
whole
Holocaust.
Like
that was like collectivism.
Oh, collectivism.
Collectivism.
Oh my God.
And so, but they don't mention the 90 million people that they killed. That's all fine.
Oh, that's
but if somebody, got,
they didn't have bread. They didn't have bread, so they died. But that's Stalin.
But if someone doesn't get a free ride,
why are you putting all this on Karl Marx?
But if you're not, how can
you put it on Karl Marx? Poor Karl.
Poor Karl. Okay, so anyway, no mens rea. So let's talk about mens rea.
Mens rea is a big deal.
Explain
Mark and I both do criminal law, as you all know from watching our show. And right now, you're telling me that mens rea is being taken out of crime.
Okay, well, what mens rea means is you have evil intent.
Yeah, but that's what the basis of law is.
No, but that's only if you believe in the Ten Commandments.
Oh, the Ten Commandments. Oh, my God.
The Ten Commandments are stupid.
Oh, here we go.
Because those were racist,
aren't the Ten Commandments a living document?
Yeah, that's a living document. It's a living document.
It goes along with time.
So it's like, thou shalt not kill unless it's Scalia.
Unless it's Scalia.
Or unless it's LaVoy. Unless it's LaVoy, yeah.
Yeah, LaVoy.
Thou shalt not kill unless it's a...
Does it have a little thing for the FBI at the bottom?
Yeah, unless
but
you're...
for the FBI to kill you.
Thou shalt not kill unless you use a silencer.
Unless you use a silencer. And you use 20 snipers. Then you can kill.
If you use a laser, it's
but
okay.
Wait a minute. Under color of authority, you can kill.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing. That actually makes this treason. If they were just murdering people, it would be a straight-out murder. But if you're pretending, if you're a mobster,
under color of authority,
if you're pretending that you're the law when you're actually a mobster, that's actually treason. Well, so that's worse than murder.
Yeah,
but anyway,
okay, let's go back to the living Constitution and the living Ten Commandments. Is that what's happening here?
That is exactly what's happening.
Well, the Mens Rea. That's insane.
The Mens Rea. So all these new federal laws that are being passed
out of the 21,000,
they don't require Mens Rea. So you can break them without intending to break them.
They're not even voted on, are they?
Oh, no. Well,
these are all administrative edicts.
Voting is an old white guy, stupid, racist, fascist, rotten thing.
We don't make the law. Now, you will follow the law.
Well, no, but the state knows better than the citizens.
The state does know better.
And so if the citizens, if they get involved, they'll just muck everything up.
Oh, geez. So wait a minute. Is this like the EPA saying that the gutter water that's in my backyard is a lake?
It's a navigable water.
It's a navigable water.
You can put a little toy board on it.
Wait a minute, my glass. I can put a little sail on there.
So another thing is, if you're surfing in a federally designated swimming area, that's a federal crime now.
How's it a federal crime to surf?
It's surfing is bad. That's probably
surfing bad.
Surfing bad.
What about suntan? Is that good?
And also using the 4-H logo without authorization is now a federal crime. So if you're trying to impersonate a 4-H person.
Is that a federal crime?
That's a federal crime.
Oh my God. I better take all my uniforms and take off the 4-H.
It's okay to be from Iran, be a colonel in the Quds Force.
Yeah.
Get tens of thousands of fake passports in Syria like they did, and they got the passport making stuff there, right?
Well, isn't that what Valerie Jarrett was running?
The Germans won't even accept Syrian passports anymore. But we want to bring in 300,000, 400,000, 500,000.
We're going to put them in Los Gatos.
500,000 people. We know they're fake passports.
They're all fake.
I mean, come on. It's the most ridiculous.
Wait a minute. They're all named Muhammad.
So that's okay.
What does it matter?
No, but that's, yeah.
We can trust them.
That's Muhammad, right. So as long as you have a fake Syrian passport and you work for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and your intent is to come to America and kill every single infidel in America, that's okay. But you can't impersonate a 4-H logo.
Yeah, you know that 4-H stuff is pretty rough.
That's a federal law.
4-H, gotta go.
Gotta go. So.
And I gotta tell you something. I love that idea of fake passports. Like we could really track every passport that comes in. They all have the same name.
What
different
happened?
Picture.
ISIS took over parts of Syria that had the passport making equipment.
Yep.
And so those are all fakes. They're all fakes. And they're selling them like hotcakes. And so Obama's saying, like, well, we need to get as many of these.
Are those the ones you can buy on the internet right now?
Yeah.
You buy them on the internet. Hey, buy your Syrian passport. Here we go.
So those are
$10 delivered to your front door.
No federal law against that. But impersonating a 4-H logo. Federal crime. Federal crime.
4-H. I thought that was a lucky leprechaun.
Or surfing in a federally designated swimming area.
I can't believe that one. Well, you know, my biggest pet peeve is definitely the navigable waters, which in fact is completely